Houston, we have a problem, and that problem's name is Zach Qureshi. Now, Zach Qureshi was the second gentleman to be detained as a potential suspect in the Charlie Kirk shooting. Now, we've all heard about George Zinn taking his pants down, running through the UVU campus screaming, he did it, I did it. We know about that one. But this one is the one that we ought to be paying attention to. And there's a lot of reasons why. So let's get into this. Now let's look at Zach Qureshi's background. He graduated from high school in North Texas, recently engaged, and earned his MBA. Although he attended high school, now listen to this. This is important. He attended high school in Texas, but he didn't grow up in the state. He was born in Kentucky, moved to Utah, lived in D.C., and then relocated to North Texas. So basically all of that was what? Before he was in high school? Because he graduated from high school in Texas, right? Do we have that right? And what this neglects to include is that he then went back and lived again in D.C. when he was interning. And we'll get to that in a minute. Now, very kindly, the family made a statement. Zach Qureshi, 25, a newly engaged MBA student, had gone to see Charlie Kirk and was standing about 25 feet away when Kirk was shot and later interviewed by the FBI. He had attended a Turning Point event. Now remember, as far as we know, he lives in Texas. So what? He went to Utah just to see talk? I mean, because if I understand this correctly, Turning Point USA does these tours throughout the country. But he needed to go to this one in Utah from Texas, right? Do I have that right? He was there to hear Charlie speak. He was devastated for his family. He didn't have anything to tell the FBI that everyone there on the ground didn't also see. Okay, so he was an eyewitness to the event. But why on earth did that make him a person of interest? Was it simply because he traveled from Texas to go there? And his background said that he went to Brigham Young. So was he still living in Utah? Is he in Texas? Where the heck does he live? We don't know. When you try to find out why it is that he was detained, why was he considered a person of interest, you aren't really given any answer. As far as we can tell, as far as the media has reported, it was merely his proximity. Now, I do know that there has been reports on X that maybe he was found with some sort of BB gun or something, pellet gun. I don't know that. That is purely rumor, so I don't know for sure. But I can say that there isn't any information coming out about why it was that he was detained, beyond the fact that he was detained by the FBI and quickly released. Okay, so far that seems okay, I guess. But let's look at the photo that we are given that shows him being detained by not the FBI, but the Provo, Utah police. Now let's keep in mind, Orem is close to Provo, but it is a different city. So right off the bat, I have to wonder, why were they looking in Provo for a potential shooting suspect that when the shooting was done in Orem? I mean, what, did they just had a hunch? I mean, obviously it was a very bad hunch because it turns out the guy had nothing to do with it, but a very interesting hunch for them to have even had. But the really weird thing is when you see the photo of them supposedly arresting him or detaining him, whatever it's called, when they took the suspect into custody. Now, this is the photo that was released of him being taken into custody. Now, does that look like the same kid? That looks like an old man. That does not look like a 25-year-old blonde MBA student that recently got engaged. And why we know all that about him, I have no idea. But that looks like another old man. That does not look like a picture of the same person. Now, I get it. You can easily say that the photo, looks like the ID for, a photo for his college ID or his work ID, something like that. You can say that he's clearly more clean cut there. Maybe he's letting his hair grow long. I get that. I'm talking about the fact that this is a blonde kid and that is a gray-haired old man. That is not the same person. So what the hell is going on here? We have the photos of Tyler Robinson, supposedly, none of which look actually like Tyler Robinson, except for the ones that weren't released by the FBI. And now you have this kid who looks nothing like the person they claim they took into custody. I mean, that looks like an old man. So, again, you got to wonder what the heck is going on here. But there's more. And let's not forget, he was arrested in a city that's, what, 20 minutes away? So, were they searching in Orem, where the actual shooter was? Why are they searching in Provo? And what made them think this kid, this one person, out of the thousands of people that were there that day, what made them think he was a person of interest? And then I find out that this young man interned, that's when he lived in D.C., for the second time, he interned at the Heritage Foundation. Now, if you don't know what the Heritage Foundation is, in addition to running the Esther Project, okay, they have incredibly strong ties to the Zionist movement. They are a big supporter of Zionist interests, and they always take the side of Israel in any sort of a debate or any sort of a conflict. They will always be determinedly taking the side of Israel. Well, the interesting thing, though, is that this kid, Zachariah Qureshi, he interned at the Heritage Foundation. Guess who else interned at the Heritage Foundation? Well, the answer to that would be Frank Carney, the attorney for Turning Point USA. And very, very interesting. This is a gentleman who I think could potentially be the one who removed the camera from the tent behind Charlie after he was shot. Because this gentleman bears a striking resemblance to the one who removed the camera. Now, I may not be right, and this guy who, the one that tampered with evidence at a crime scene of the most public and well-known political assassination of the last 50 years in the United States, yeah, that guy. I don't know if that is the attorney for Turning Point, but I know that he sure looks a heck of a lot like the attorney from Turning Point. And now, when you look at Qureshi and what else I'm going to tell you here, now I'm starting to really wonder. And in case you're curious, I was looking to find the photo of Frank Carney and stumbled across his LinkedIn page. Just so you know, last week when I looked at his LinkedIn page, there was a photo there. And now there isn't. Kind of interesting, don't you think? But anyway, moving right along, these two both have something in common, and that is that they worked together. Well, not that they worked together, but they both worked at the Heritage Foundation. So let's talk a little bit about the Heritage Foundation. So, as I already said, the Heritage Foundation was behind the Esther Project, and you can find out a lot. That's more than enough for a whole other video. But you have the Esther Project, and then they're suggesting that possibly this rumor, which I don't believe, the rumor that influencers are getting $7,000 per post or whatever just to post something in support of Israel. I don't believe that, and I discuss why in my video about Candace. If you want to, you can go watch that. But the Esther Project, I think, is connected to that it is through the Esther Project that they are making those payments. Now, I don't believe that those payments are happening, let alone that they are happening through the Esther Project. But the Heritage Foundation has publicly moved toward foreign policy that places Israel high among U.S. priorities. For example, its president, Kevin Roberts, said Israel and Taiwan are among the top U.S. foreign policy priorities. Couldn't be too much plainer than that. But this is not someone who has America first in their minds. This is someone who has Israel and apparently Taiwan first in their priorities for the United States. So I tried to dig a little bit deeper into why it was that Qureshi was detained. And he matched early eyewitness descriptions. Immediately after the shooting, eyewitnesses gave police a broad physical description of someone fleeing the scene, reportedly a young male wearing clothing similar to what Qureshi had on. Okay, well, wouldn't there have been about 1,000 20 to 25-year-old males fleeing the scene? I mean, it was a college campus. They all fled. In a fast-moving, chaotic situation, investigators often detain anyone who matches a witness description until they can confirm or rule them out with surveillance footage or physical evidence. Well, but you're picking him up almost a half an hour away from the scene of the crime. Are you telling me there were no other 20 to 25-year-old men in between Orem and Provo that day? I mean, there should have been thousands. Utah police said publicly that Qureshi was detained for questioning based on preliminary witness information, not because they had proof he had fired a weapon. So they basically had no reason to detain him, but they did so anyway. Now, when I put all this together, I mean, I don't even see a clear reason why the kid was there in the first place, because the kid was... Is he still living in Texas? Is he in Utah? We don't know. But if he's someone who has ties to the Heritage Foundation, and that would theoretically, by expediency, give him at least marginal ties to TPUSA, is this kid another patsy? Was this kid another patsy? Was this kid another one who was running around doing things for whoever it was that was doing the shooting? Do you see where I'm going with all of this? Because something about, and then you have this picture which looks nothing like the kid that they detained. And it reminds me, there's a scene in the movie JFK where you have all the attorneys for Jim Garrison, all of his team sitting around a table, and they start talking about all the different photos of that they claimed were Lee Harvey Oswald. And if you look at them, none of them look anything like Lee Harvey Oswald. Although, I will say, this kid Qureshi looks a little bit like Lee Harvey Oswald. But this photo looks nothing like Qureshi. So why on earth was this kid detained? And who the hell is this? I mean, none of this makes sense. It just adds more to this ongoing saga of things that make zero sense. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think this is another patsy? Is this person the one that actually was detained? What is going on? Let me know your thoughts.